Ever feel like you missed your chance to start a podcast? Like you waited too long and now the space is too crowded or too competitive? If so, you're not the only one, and you're definitely not too late. Hey there, I'm Julia Levine, aka the Podcast Teacher, and you're listening to Podcasting for Solopreneurs, the show that helps online business owners grow their podcast to get more listeners, leads, and sales. I work with a lot of solopreneurs who feel this quiet regret, like they meant to start a podcast 2 years ago, and now it feels like they missed the window. The big names are already out there, the charts are looking crowded, and they're feeling that overwhelm set in. But I want you to know that it's not actually too late. In fact, there are some real reasons why now might be one of the best times to start your podcast. So in this episode, we're going to bust that myth of being too late. Also, look at what's actually working in podcasting right now, and wrap it up with some strategic tips to help you start smart. So let's start by addressing that big question. Is podcasting too saturated? This idea stops so many brilliant voices from ever hitting record. But here's the thing. Saturation is not the problem. Yes, there are over 4 million podcasts out there right now, and while 4 million is a lot, it doesn't even begin to compare to the number of YouTube channels out there, which is over 150 million, or the number of blogs, which is over 600 million. 4 million is so small in comparison. But it gets even better because only a fraction of those are actually active. According to Podcast Index, only 485,186 shows published an episode in the past 90 days. That means that the rest of those 3.5 million podcasts are either abandoned or inconsistent. So, what does that mean for you? Well, it means that there's still space. And not just space, but opportunity. Because podcasting isn't about competing with everyone, it's about connecting deeply with your audience. You don't need millions of downloads. You just need the right 100, 500, or 1,000 listeners who feel like you are speaking directly to them. And then they want to work with you, learn from you, or buy from you. You don't need to chase trends or reinvent the wheel to reach these people. You just need a strategy that aligns your podcast with the problems that your ideal listener, your ideal client is already trying to solve. So instead of thinking, oh, podcasting is too crowded, I urge you to choose the narrative that it's never been easier to be discoverable, because this is absolutely true if your messaging is dialed in. And when you approach your show like a service to your audience, something that delivers real value, gives them direction, you are going to stand out immediately. Because the truth is, a lot of podcasters out there are just winging it. They talk in circles, they don't offer a clear next step with a CTA, and they never think about how their show fits into the bigger picture, whatever that means for them, especially as business owners, how it fits into our business model. But if you are strategic and you bring clarity, you are consistent, and you provide value, you are already ahead of, 80+% of the podcasters out there. I do realize that the fear of saturation is loud. We're hearing how crowded the podcast industry is. But the reality is that there's still so much space for thoughtful, helpful, high integrity, strategic shows. That's what's actually working in podcasting right now, especially for online business owners like you who have something real to say, who have real value to give, and the courage to finally say it. Today's podcast listeners are craving realness. They want connection with a podcast host. They want to learn. They want to laugh. They want to feel seen and understood. And that is where you come in. Your perspective, your story, your expertise, all of that is your edge. People are actively searching for shows that they can relate to. So if you've been sitting on the sidelines thinking, it's too late for me to start a podcast, I promise that it's really, really not. So if you're ready to get started or just ready to start thinking about it, here are 4 strategic tips about where to focus your energy. Tip number 1 is to start with strategy, not perfection. One of the biggest mistakes that I see is podcasters trying to make episode 1 sound like episode 100. You don't need the best gear, a fancy voiceover intro, or perfectly edited audio. What you do need is a clear message. So ask yourself, who am I talking to? What problem are they trying to solve? And how does my podcast help them move forward? That clarity will do way more for your growth than a fancy $500 microphone ever could. Tip number 2 is to plan your first 4 to 6 episodes around pain points that the majority of your audience experiences. There will be time later to dig into more specifics, but you want to hit the majority of your audience, majority of your target audience, with your first several episodes. So don't just talk about your topic. Speak directly to what the majority of your audience is struggling with. Your first few episodes should help people get to know your voice, your approach, and of course, the value that you bring. Tip number 3 is to choose one clear call to action, CTA, to start. Don't ask your listener to do 5 different things because chances are they're not going to do any of them. So just give them one simple thing. For your first few episodes, I recommend simply asking the listener to follow or subscribe to the show on their favorite platform. Keep it simple and they will follow through. And tip number 4 is to let go of being everywhere. When you're just starting out, it's easy to feel like you also need to put your podcast on YouTube. You need to repurpose the content into shorts onto TikTok and Instagram. You need to send out emails and etc. And yeah, all of those things are great goals to happen eventually. But honestly, when you're just starting, focus on your audio podcast first. Let it become the hub of your content, and you can add on those other layers as you are able to. I hear so many folks saying that, well, if I'm going to do a podcast, I'm going to also do video because it's more bang for my buck. It's a better use of my time. And I understand that reasoning. But then those same folks get paralyzed by the additional equipment, the need to be camera ready, the additional editing involved, and it stalls them. So podcasting works best when it's sustainable. And so that means keeping it as simple as possible, especially at the beginning. So if you have been sitting on the idea of starting a podcast, let this be your permission slip to start small but strategic. But start. Because the best time to start a podcast was 5 or 10 years ago. But the next best time is right now. And if you want a clear, simple path to get you going, I've got you covered. Download my free podcast roadmap at thepodcastteacher.com/roadmap. It walks you through 10 simple, actionable steps to launch a podcast that actually grows your business without the overwhelm or fancy tech. So go grab it and take your first step. I am cheering for you. Until next time, happy podcasting.